Like, you know, Vera Hall was a woman growing up in 1940s America. She was a daughter of a slave, and I can't relate to that as a white man living in fucking growing up in Wales, and I won't be able to relate to her pain, and so many people won't be able to relate to my pain of what it was like to live with a chronic health condition for 10 years. And so that one line, I always just really connected to that one line, don't nobody know my troubles but God. It's a good place for, if people want to kind of get to learn my background. That'll be coming out 9th of May, I think that's dropping, but that'll be a good, I'm encouraging everyone to check that out when it drops, because, you know, it's a lot of my story in one place, and it's also got a sample that I adore from an artist that I adore.
We're gonna pray, we get happy, like just get happy and shout. But I'd always sing. I always did like to sing, and I always tried. I'd be the one to sing. I'd sing or get up and sing a song, and then I'd get down on my knees and pray. When I get up from praying, I'd sing another song, and then we'd get happy and just shout and be holding each other, just jumping around. Oh yes, my soul is happy. My soul is happy. Just be there shouting, just having a good time, just like we saw those growing up people do out there. Really was in church. But I don't know why, but I always never want to do nothing but just sing all the time I was at church. And then when I got old enough to go to school, I used to sing a song, yell about every morning for the take in by. I just always have loved it singing. Been trying to sing all of my life. I ought to be a real good singer all these years trying to sing. It goes kind of like this. Was in my childhood, 'twas many years ago, and the spirit of thee I was filled. There was no forms of fashion, just plain old spirit filled. And that little wooden church on the hill, there was no well-dressed people, just plain folks everywhere. They wore just plain old ruffles and frocks and frills. There was no forms of fashion, just plain old spirit filled. And that little wooden church on the hill.
Hello, beautiful spirals. How are you doing today? That was the lovely Vera Hall speaking and singing there, over 75 years ago. What a privilege to be able to hear her now. And before that we had Ren talking to Knox Hill. Ren raised some good points about the ethics of music sampling and cultural appropriation. I'm really glad he chose to address that head-on, and it's something we will be looking at in a lot more detail in this video. Meet Vera Hall, born Adele Hall Ward on April 6, 1902, a force to be reckoned with from Livingston, Alabama. You might recognize her from her timeless 1937 hit, Trouble So Hard. But Vera was more than just a singer. She's a symbol of resilience and cultural heritage. Despite her immense talent, it's worth noting that she faced barriers due to the systemic racism of her time.
Born in Livingston, Alabama in 1902, Vera began singing religious songs she learnt from her mother, Agnes, who was born enslaved, and her father, Ephron Zully Hall, and at her Baptist church. As a child, she often babysat, and in her early 20s, after her coal miner husband was killed in a fight, she supported herself and her daughter Minnie by working as a cook, washerwoman and nursemaid. Through it all, she sang, and became well known in her community for singing. Singing that revealed the harsh realities of being black, working class, and a woman in the Deep South in the early 20th century. Although steeped in the Baptist tradition, which forbade the worldly sinful songs of the blues, when her mother died, Hall found private relief in the secular genre. "I don't sing 'em around nobody," she said. I go off in the kitchen and close the door before I sing a blues that fits my case. When she was scolded by church elders for singing the blues for white folk collectors, she defended herself. I told those old deacons the truth. I did sing the blues. I gave them the words and showed them how the tune went, but that didn't have no effect on my religion.
Trouble so high, don't nobody know my trouble but God. Don't nobody know my trouble but God.
Growing up, Vera's father rented land and raised hogs, corn, potatoes, peanuts, peas. She remembers that they had plenty to eat but not a lot of clothes. Her father would share food with many people and they would repay him by working for him during harvest times. She said that women, who work at chores all day and prepare all the meals, have more to do than men do. On weekends she and other church members would go to the clubs to hear music and watch people dance and have a good time. Vera believed that religion should not make one enjoy life any less. Vera felt that the Lord had blessed her and the people around her.
Vera Hall's singing was described by ethnomusicologist Alan Lomax as being like a deep-voiced shepherd's flute, mellow and pure in tone. The sound comes from deep within her, from a source of gold and light. It is a liquid, full contralto, rich in low overtones, but it can leap directly into falsetto and play there as effortlessly as a bird in the wind. It was Lomax who helped bring her to wider attention when he introduced her to New York audiences, inviting her to sing at Columbia University's American Music Festival in 1948. This was a whole decade after his parents John and Ruby first heard Hall's voice on their trip through Alabama, recording African American folk songs for the Archive of American Folk Music.
While Lomax's recordings preserved Vera's legacy, they also raise questions about the appropriation of black music by white scholars. It's a complex issue that continues to spark debate today. By some accounts, Lomax went to great lengths to track down and compensate the original artists, but many question how fair the levels of compensation were, especially given that Lomax himself retained copyright for the music created not by him, but by these underrepresented black artists.
There can be no doubt that without the Lomaxes, Vera Hall's extraordinary voice would not have reached much beyond Livingston, never mind being heard across the globe a half-century later. They understood that this was a voice in need of documentation. Pretty much as soon as her voice was laid down in those field recordings, it became synonymous with American and not just African American folk music. But whilst recognising this fact, it's also difficult to ignore the inherent complications within the practice of documenting the folk, and indeed approaching the archive and the archiving process today from a contemporary standpoint. Although full of praise for Vera and her talent, some of Lomax's analysis of her singing is, to say the least, problematic. Moving swiftly past his description of her as a large, handsome, brown-skinned woman, but with impeccable manners, he comments that Hall has added to African American folk traditions the mellowness and polish of the best of European vocal art. Now, he was writing at a time when self-taught African American folk art hadn't reached a point of general acceptance in most of the cultural establishment, and so no doubt this was a strategy he was using to argue Hall's case. But to me now it does more to diminish Vera Hall's artistic genius than authenticate it.
In 1943, the BBC featured Vera's haunting rendition of Another Man Done Gone, introducing American blues music to a global audience. And here's where things get murky. The song's popularity led to widespread commercialization, and over the next few decades countless white artists profited from the black musician's work without proper credit or compensation. A more recent case in point, Moby's controversial sampling of Vera's song in his track, Natural Blues. While some hailed it as a homage, others criticized it as yet another example of cultural appropriation.
I didn't know it at the time, but I first heard Hall's voice as a teenager at the turn of the millennium. Back then I devoured music videos, we all did, right? And the one for this top 10 hit made a big impression on me. It features an elderly man, apparently forgotten and warehoused in a care home, who's eventually carried away by an angel. Over the top of this vignette, there was a remarkable voice, an iconic voice that stuck in my head. I couldn't get it out. And so, with my weekly spends, I took myself off to Market Street in Manchester city centre and bought the single. Remember them? If you do, you'll probably remember this too.
Ooh, Lord, ain't my trouble so hard. Ooh, Lord, ain't my trouble so hard. Don't nobody know my trouble but God. Don't nobody know my trouble but God.
It's Moby's Natural Blues, and while Moby was the elderly man in the video, he most certainly was not the voice that stuck in my head. That was Vera Hall's voice.
So what exactly is the issue with Moby using these samples? Moby legally licensed and, mostly, credited Lomax's records for play. But the artists, Bessie Jones, Boy Blue, Vera Hall, likely made very little from their original performances. And most of them had passed on by the time of play's release. Their estates did not benefit either. And here's the real crux. Moby was not about to make the same mistake as they did, licensing every single one of play's songs multiple times over for film, television, and commercial use, generating profits into the millions. Moby's commercialization of play does further complicate the issue. The whole album became an absolute goldmine for licensing, with tracks like Porcelain popping up in ads for everything from Baileys to Volkswagens. This commodification of music blurs the line between art and advertising, ultimately undermining the integrity of the original recordings and the artists behind them. The original artists and their estates made very little from these songs, and Moby, a white American, became an overnight millionaire. And, money aside, throughout the album, there is an ambivalent appropriation of the perceived features of another culture. Hesmondhalgh argues, the samples pay tribute to that other culture, even celebrate it, but on terms which ultimately reduce the complexity of the appropriated culture to something crude and simplistic. In Pitchfork's contemporaneous review, the critic Brent DiCrescenzo echoes, the sampling and processing of passionate folk and blues roots music drains whatever emotional ballast kept the music so spiritually afloat. In other words, play literally whitewashes the blues. It's a reminder of the ongoing struggle for recognition and respect in the music industry, where black artists too often find their contributions overlooked and exploited. Despite these challenges, Vera's impact endures. Her recordings are treasured by scholars and blues enthusiasts alike, offering a glimpse into a rich musical tradition that refuses to be silenced. So let's honor Vera Hall not just as a singer, but as a symbol of resilience in the face of adversity. After her death in 1964, Alan Lomax eulogized, "It is from singers like Vera Hall that all of us who love folk music in America have everything to learn. Her performances were all graced with dignity and with love. Her sense of timing and beat were perfection itself. But all this is analysis. The mystery of Vera Hall and her art, while hinted at in the recordings we will always treasure, lies buried in the state where once the stars fell." In 2005, Vera Hall was inducted into the Alabama Women's Hall of Fame. Okay. Well, it's time to move on to Ren's new single Troubles, and see what he has done with Vera's sample. I want to be really clear that this video is not a criticism of Ren or his choice to sample Vera in his song. He has paid for the appropriate licensing, and I know that Ren is approaching the whole project with cultural sensitivity, given his comments about Vera and her mother in the Knox interview. And whilst Moby's track has been described as essentially an extended remix of Vera's song, adding little original substance, which sits on a whole album of similar tracks, I'm pretty sure our sick boy Ren is about to take Vera's sample and add his own unique twist based on his own troubles in life. Shall we have a listen?
It's fitting that this story ends here. Trouble So Hard by Vera Hall has always resonated with me very deeply. She was the daughter of a slave, navigating a hostile 1940s America, something I'll never be able to relate to. The pain and simplicity of the line, "Don't nobody know my troubles but God," was one that seemed universal to all struggles. And it was a line I was always deeply connected to. If there is a God, I want to thank you for giving me the resilience to be able to sit down here and to tell my story today. I hope it's far from over, and I hope that this is just chapter 1. Thank you, everybody, for giving me the space to share my story with you. For everybody still in the dark, trust, hope, and dare to dream that you can get out of it too. I love you all, and thank you for supporting me like you have. Pew, pew, pew. Go through it.
I don't reach into the past very much for these shards of shattered glass and harsh paper cuts. Leave me stop when I reach in, memories are seeped in. Hydrochloric acid, I go to war and get passive and freeze up. Music help the ice to thaw. Put the chisel in the middle, swing the hammer of Thor. Pull it out of the impossible, Excalibur sword. Etching notepads full of reasons why my feelings are sore. The first day that I got sick, ejected from the cockpit of living. 19, young teen, waking up bitten. Posters up, manhunt, Ren went missing. Hard to have faith when the gods don't listen.
It was great to hear Ren addressing the heritage of Vera's sample again in Chapter 8. And do you know what's just struck me? There is a parallel here. Ren is using his platform to speak out for the missing, the silenced, and the forgotten. And in doing so he is honoring Vera Hall. He has explicitly called this out more than once now. And in this way he is honoring all black artists who have also had their voices swept under the carpet of history. And Ren is careful to point out that these are different troubles, experienced by different people in different ways. But for me that's the main difference between this song and the Moby one. A celebration of the missing in society. A chance to raise awareness and hear their voices. Not just a crass commercialization of someone else's uncredited work. This couldn't be any further from that.
Maybe was the hardest. Waking in the body that was buried like a carcass. Brain in the lion's den, body in the shark pit. Waking up in pain again, aching, broken hearted. Persistent little blogger, I was bouncing from a doctor to a doctor to a doctor, like a table tennis game that has no end. So be the fate of Ren. Every single question answered with a question on the end. The second year I came to terms with giving up my dreams. Mine was severed from the means that helped me write these rhyme schemes. Brain was inflamed, the fatigue was crushing. Hard to remain sane with your brain combusting. And the third year was murder, living in a purgatory full of worry, wouldn't live to be 30. Lifestyle hurt me, always in my bed tomb. Rearranged the alphabet and all the letters spelled doom. Light hurt my eyes, popping pills to survive. When you're 23 and mentally you steadily decline. 24 I was poor, disability benefits. What's the benefit of disability? It's irrelevant.
Disability benefits. What's the benefit of disability? It's irrelevant. Holy shit, that is a powerful line. This week in the 8 missing chapters, Ren gave us a sense of what it must have been like to live with chronic illness, repeatedly misdiagnosed and mistreated by the medical profession. I can't imagine how he felt to be told he was wrong, he was fabricating it all, or that there was no treatment, and then suddenly this new experimental wonder drug, or that ancient alternative supplement or ritual. This was to be the thing that made it all better, only for things to get worse. Much, much worse.
5 and the scars that were etched, they crack. Elastic bands only stretch so far and then snap deep in psychosis. Hallucinations, troubled vision. This is from the underworld, we're conjuring my superstition. 25, living back at home with my mum, but not because I'm a bum, alone and physically done. So thin, so frail, so weak I'd become, and my skin so pale, never kissed by the sun. One time I carved a hole in my chest just to feel. I wish that was a metaphor, the struggle was real. When you're living in the Holocaust, you buckle and kneel. There's relief in the teeth of the kiss of cold steel. Facts. 26, I'm highly medicated and the pain sophisticated while I'm lying broken naked on my back. I bore my microphone until my coffin started dropping raw thoughts with the grim reaper knocking on the track. But then, man, lo and behold, I heard an angel beckon on this treacherous road.
Lo and behold, I heard an angel beckon on this treacherous road. Is Ren about to tell us about one of the angels he mentioned in the chapters? It broke my heart a bit when Ren shared some of his romantic struggles, including how difficult it can be to navigate a relationship when one of you is very sick, and how he tried to balance the need for closeness and intimacy with a desire to protect his girlfriend by enforcing distance as a buffer, wanting to give her protection that he hadn't had himself with Joe.
Was a stem cell doctor with a generous glow. In the cell transplant, pulled me out of the cold. And my skin got younger and my body got stronger. And my stomach felt hunger for a door that was closed. And my soul heard music for the first time. Beauty was a word I'd use for this gift of gold. Oh Lord, I forgive you. Lord, I forgive you. Lord, I forgive you. Make me whole. This music I give you. Pain that I live through. Everything I've been through is yours to hold.
Oh my goodness, I have got whole body shivers. To hear all the detail behind this in each of the chapters, and then to hear this heart-wrenchingly beautiful song. Each line of these lyrics sends my head spinning, extrapolating the stories that sit behind it. I'm never going to be able to listen to a Ren song the same way again. I know this now. Despite all of these setbacks, and all these moments of despair, Ren perseveres, finding solace and purpose in his music and the support of those around him. Through sharing his story so honestly, both in the chapters and in his music, millions of people around the world can find hope through his resilience, grit, and the pursuit of hope in the face of relentless adversity. Ren is the gift that keeps on giving. But I hope through that process he can manage to retain enough for himself too. Let's give the last word to Ren. He commented on the video. There's a really good chance we could chart with this one. This would be the first time in history a song about ME and Lyme disease would make the top 40, which would be huge for awareness. Moments like this are pinch me moments and make me feel good about keeping the promise to my younger self. That's because of all you guys, so thank you so much. If you want to help secure that spot, you can download Troubles on all platforms by following the link below.